The organization is the Louisiana Chemical Association. Today, we're looking at a convention where we get our people together, talk about issues that affect the industry and the tremendous growth that's available in Louisiana. Well, we represent over 27,000 employees, direct employees. There are numerous indirect employees and positions that are available through the Chemical Association. We also have a tremendous amount of revenue. Billions of dollars are spent in the state of Louisiana by our industry.
It's a very exciting time for our industry because the natural gas situation over the last 5 years has changed dramatically. And now, from a situation where we were shrinking, we're now growing. That's great news for our plants, it's great news for our suppliers, but most importantly, it's great news for the folks who have jobs when these expansions are complete.
Tell us, how much money are we talking about in terms of expansion, and what is the potential for new jobs?
Well, the potential for expansion is in the multiple tens of billions of dollars. That's a B. That's sort of a Washington kind of term, billions. We're looking at $60 to $80 billion potentially in Louisiana alone. And in Texas, another $120 billion. And so that type of economic activity is going to generate, first of all, a tremendous number of jobs in the construction trades. Those men and women who can help construct these plants, new plants, as well as plants that are being modernized and expanded. Then after that, there will be a whole lot of jobs available to help to run these new plants and to run these expansions. And so that's why one of the major issues that we're looking at our annual legislative conference is this whole area of workforce development and education. How can we best get the message out that there are going to be tens of thousands of jobs available that pay really, really well to young men and women who might not have other alternatives when it comes to leaving high school?
There's really an explosion, a tsunami, if you will, of economic development here in this state of Louisiana. And it's going to create a lot of opportunity, a lot of jobs. It's just going to be a really exciting time in Louisiana.
Louisiana is really growing. It's a very exciting time. Many of the industries here are really blossoming and expanding and growing, and that's creating a whole host of new jobs, many of them in the craft area, so tremendous growth there. But along with the craft growth, for about every one job in industry, we create 5 to 7 jobs in the community. So you can imagine the amount of growth going on and the need for jobs and education.
The key that we have to remember is that you change Louisiana's future by investing in our people. There's industrial expansion going on, there's growth in facilities, there's growth in production, there's demand in the businesses that you have. But the way we change Louisiana long-term economically and for our citizens is to invest in our people so that when the valleys do occur, and they will, that they have the ability to sustain through a difficult economic time. And so much of what George has just talked about is an opportunity to invest in Louisiana's people. So about 12 or 14 years ago, Louisiana made a concerted investment in two-year colleges, made an investment in Louisiana's workforce. Today we have 13 institutions across Louisiana touching nearly every community, 53 of the 64 parishes with offerings in that parish within a 20-minute drive of every person in the state. Look at the enrollment trend. Now, these numbers are from fall 2006 through fall 2013. If you were to go back further to the early days of 20,000 or so students, you would see one of the fastest growing community and technical college systems in the country. Annually, our colleges are ranked among the nation's fastest growing. That number does not include over 35,000 contract training enrollments and over 33,000 students enrolled in basic education courses. I want to pause for a second and say Louisiana, with 2.1 million working age adults, 600,000 of those have no high school diploma. I want you to just soak that in for a second. Think about what that means to your workforce. What does that mean from an economic viability point of view? Roughly 1/2 of those participate in the workforce. So the work that is going on in dealing with that adult basic education population is critical. We've got to stop thinking of the student that did not, or the citizen that did not graduate from high school, as being incapable of learning. It's something that we've sort of ingrained in our own brains over the years that you must finish high school before you go on to college. That's a sequential step that we created. Many of these 600,000, they have six-figure incomes, right? Because they work in some of your organizations. These are folks who are fully capable of learning a skill set, as well as many of the others across our state. Not only have we seen tremendous increases in enrollment, but we're also the second fastest growing producer of two-year awards in the nation. We have seen a huge increase from just under 5,000 awards going back to 2006 to over 25,000 associate degrees, certificates, industry-based credentials. These are the folks that are working in many of your facilities. Now, that trajectory is huge. Here's the challenge. It's not enough. You need us to do this every year in terms of the increases. And so this is what keeps me awake at night. This is what challenges me, because I know it's what keeps you awake at night as well. That trend line, if you notice the sort of the zigs and the zags over time, the dip that we're experiencing right now, we fully anticipate, by the way, that dip we believe is related back to growth in the economy. We've seen enrollment begin to kind of pull back a bit. Why? Because people are going to work. People attend two-year colleges to get an opportunity for the next job. And so as those job opportunities become more readily available, as they have recently in the economy, we begin to see enrollment tick back a bit, and the completers will follow that same path. Since 2006, 380% increase. I want you to think about any of your operations. 380% increase from 2006 to today. You'd take that, wouldn't you? That's pretty good stuff. But how do we move from where we are today for another 380%, or 400%, or 500%? So the questions become pretty quickly demand. Because our challenge is that regardless of production today, our production is still being outstripped by demand. As you look around, there are very few industries out there who have unlimited demand. And it'd be kind of nice if you could say, my organization has unlimited demand. Well, let me tell you, it's nice to be able to say that, but to have to produce on it is a very different story. Looking at Tier 1 industries, we'll drill down to the construction sector in a second, but I wanted to set a little bit of context for where we are today, not only within the construction crafts, but also in terms of the folks who are going to operate these facilities once they are built. It's important for us to be thinking about that today. About 4 months ago, the folks at Louisiana Economic Development identified Tier 1 annual job demand. Tier 1 annual job demand. And looking at the 2012 completers within that Tier 1, these are areas like engineering technology, finance and accounting, computer information services, construction crafts, welding, electrical, industrial production. Those are the highest need areas within Louisiana's economy, okay? As you identify those Tier 1 jobs, we today have a deficit of about 19,975 annual completers in those fields. This is not all awards. This doesn't include general studies. It doesn't include liberal arts, right? These are the specific folks that we know in this economy that we have to produce. So when you think about the numbers of what we're producing today and what we have to produce, it's staggering, 217%. Now, we could pause for a second and say, not sure how we're going to get there. Or we can begin to focus the resources that we have, focus our organization on the production. One of the biggest challenges that we see is we want to manage your expectations, because 217% increase annual, think about that, annual, not over time, an annual number, is likely more than anyone could produce. But let's talk about where we would like to place our emphasis. Clearly, construction is the here and now subject. At some point, process operators will be the here and now. The industrial maintenance technicians will be the here and now. We've got to begin to sequence those and place our resources in the right places. So as you spread that out across the Tier 1 jobs broken down by category, you can see the demand in the construction crafts. Right at 1,400 graduates being produced, and the numbers are roughly 11,000 in terms of the estimates. Now, that's about an 1,100% increase. So if someone came to you and said, I need you to increase production at your facility by 1,100%, you'd laugh at them, right? We can't afford to laugh, because this is serious stuff. It's sobering. Let's take a look at industrial production. We produce about 560 process operators annually. That number needs to be about 5,500. I want you to think about what that process operated curriculum looks like, the time frame, the resources that it takes to build out that kind of production. Now, I show you these numbers not to scare any of you, but to simply say the challenge is daunting. It is huge. We face one of the largest workforce challenges to be found anywhere in the country. But isn't that exciting? Isn't that kind of what we had hoped for? Isn't this the economy that we knew Louisiana could grow? So it's the kind of challenge that we look forward to. So let's talk specifically about the construction crafts. George did a great job of framing up those 4 committees and the work that's gone on there. He mentioned a second ago that Jimmy Sawtell, who works in Louisiana's community and technical colleges, chaired one of those committees, and I want to give you a specific breakdown as to the work that has gone on within that area. As you know, the plan that has been around now for about a year. Immediately, once that plan was released and we sort of drilled down into the detail of it, we recognized something. No longer could there be a perception among you, our customers, that there was a divide between Louisiana's community and technical colleges and ABC. I want you to think about that for a second. There can't be a divide. 1,100% production increase. We got more work to be done than any one of us can do. If we don't work together, I can assure you we will fail. And so one of our first efforts was to reach out, to work with our friends at ABC and Department of Education, the Louisiana Apprenticeship Group, to really begin to think through how we meet the demand that's out there. Louisiana's community and technical colleges have provided the workforce for the chemical industry for a number of generations. And in fact, as we see the huge boom that is occurring in industrial expansion here in Louisiana with billions of dollars being invested, the construction of those new facilities will be done primarily by those folks who are trained in Louisiana's community and technical colleges. But after that construction is done, someone has to operate those facilities as well. And so the process operators, the industrial maintenance technicians, those are skill sets that are gained at our institution. And so Louisiana Chemical Association and its members are key partners for Louisiana's community technical colleges.
When you look today at the number of 11th graders who, when they take that ACT test, it says they're going to be ready to make it through a full year at Sewella, or a full year at Delgado, or a full year at LSU. Those numbers show us it's about 25% of Louisiana's youth are really ready to make it through a 2-year or 4-year institution. Now, when you go back to the 8th grade test, what that test shows you is it's true there. Only 25% of our kids are really likely at that level to make it through a 4-year university or a 4-year college or a 2-year college. Go back to 4th grade. Look at the 4th grade LEAP test. Only 25% of kids test at that level on the test as well. Which is why I say whether you're talking about a 2-year college or a 4-year college, we do have to change something in spite of all of our progress to ensure that whether kids are going to LSU to major in economics, whether they're going to BRCC to major in auto tech, we've got to make sure that our kids are fundamentally prepared in reading, writing, and mathematics for them to be successful no matter what career we're talking about. I've not met a single employer in this room or anywhere in this state that told me they don't care whether their employees can think and reason, whether their employees can communicate, whether their employees can read and write responsibly. That's why I believe in the Common Core Standards. The Common Core Standards is a basic set of descriptions as to how well kids should be able to read, should be able to write, should be able to do mathematics in our state and in 43 other states across the country. See, I believe that Louisiana's kids are just as smart, they're just as capable, that God has blessed them with gifts just as great as any children in America. And I find it unconscionable that in Massachusetts, that in Maryland, by the time 8th grade rolls around, kids learn mathematics a full year ahead of Louisiana's kids. I find it unconscionable with a group of kids who are just as smart and just as capable as any in America, that only 8% of Louisiana's 8th graders are taking algebra. Because if you can't take algebra in 8th grade, you'll never get to pre-calculus and calculus in high school, and we are leaving our kids out of the STEM economy. We are leaving our kids out of the basic skills that are needed to be successful in your STEM industry. The reason I believe in the Common Core Standards is not because I believe in the federal government, not because I believe in nationalization of education. In fact, I believe locally, from Caddo Parish to Plaquemines Parish and everywhere in between, the local school system should be able to determine the curriculum and what's right for their kids. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't believe kids in California or New York are any smarter that they're any better at reading, that they're any better at math innately than our kids are. And I believe our kids deserve every shot to be taught, to be tested, and that we should be accountable to the mission of them learning at as high a level as any children on this earth. And that's why I believe in the Common Core standards. But I will also tell you this. It is high time that we get away from the idea that every job in this state should be predicated, every award that we give to a school should be predicated, every time we say well done to a child should be predicated on the idea that LSU and Southern and Tech and Southeastern and Grambling are the only paths to success. It is high time we get away from, in a state where only 20% of citizens are four-year university degree holders, not planning and not honoring for the other 80%. We need a plan for the 80% of Louisianans, for whatever percentage of future Louisiana adults are not going to get a four-year university degree. I've spent a lot of time talking to Dan Bornay and others in your industry who represent the interests of your industry, trying to understand your industry. I've spent a lot of time, Walter, with plant managers trying to understand your needs. And what I've come to understand is, yes, you need basic reading, writing, and math skills, but you don't necessarily need everybody to major in political science. You don't necessarily need a bunch of economics majors from LSU or wherever it happens to be. That actually, as Dr. Sullivan was articulating, there are multiple paths to prosperity. And if our community and technical college system is coming on board to provide more paths to prosperity for our young people, it is the moral obligation of our K-12 system to actually begin to plan for the 80% and not just for the 20% who are getting a four-year university degree.
We have two significant projects. One is a ethane cracker. The second is a gas to liquids project. The ethane cracker project is a $5 to $7 billion expansion, which basically is a ethane cracker plus downstream units that will make a variety of products. The GTL project is a gas to liquids project. It takes methane, converts it into diesel, waxes, lube oils, and other chemical feedstocks. In preparing the community for growth, we started a number of community meetings, and some of those meetings were in the Mossville area, which is a African-American community, low economic level, and it was basically outreach in advance of a property purchase program. And we were speaking to a group of ministers, and the minister said to me at the end of our portion of the meeting, "Thanks for coming and meeting with us. Thanks for all of this information. But what can we tell the people in our community, our parishioners, the members of our church? What can we tell them in terms of what they need to do to get a job?" Okay, and not being a human resources professional, I said, well, I'm sure there's something that's written. I'm sure that there's some materials. Went back and looked, and we had no materials on what someone should be doing. So with Sasol, what Sasol did is decided to sponsor a guide on how to get a job, and I asked Harris DeVille and Associates, Kim Kuzmano, to basically put me together something that would give these ministers guidance on how to get a job. You know, fairly simple. Put it in a trifold, maybe a quadfold form, so that it contains all the information and we can publish it and hand it out. And Kim and the guys from HDA started working, and 81 pages later, we end up with a guide, and much of the information in here captures a lot of the information that George and Dr. Sullivan talked about in terms of what are the degree programs and so forth. But even before you get to that, there are some very fundamental steps, and Dr. White talked about a 5-step process. Our 5-step process is get your high school diploma. Make sure you have basic life skills, such as why it's important to get to work on time. That's something that some of the people in the market really don't understand. Select a craft, skill, or profession, get certification, associate degree, build a resume, and apply for a job. So, the information is all there, But as we move forward, we started this process in August of last year, completed the guide in December, and started working through how are we going to implement this process. And what we decided is the resource guide, what we found in talking to experts in the area, people with the Workforce Resource Center, some of the committees that you saw on George's list, members of those committees, was the Workforce Resource Guide is basically still not available, even though all the words are there. The audience that needs it, that 20% of the population that will be left behind by the economic expansion and growth, it's not available to them. They still don't, it still doesn't click. And what we realized is going back to idea generation, the ministers, what we realized is we needed mentors. We needed people that could take this forward. We needed people that could identify the prospective job seeker and be a mentor to them. So you see that we've trained over 150 mentors, and the document has been downloaded quite a number of times. Training the mentors gave us a lot of insight into what needed to happen, and two things we discovered that needed to happen, one being very obvious and one being considerably less obvious. The thing that was obvious was we needed to identify a way to generate scholarships. We needed a way for that 20% that's unemployable today, to find a way back into the training. And so we're working with the Southwest Louisiana Community Foundation as a potential source of funding and as a potential basically umbrella organization to decide who gets the funding, who gets the scholarships. Sasol does not want to be in the position of picking winners and losers, but we need somebody that can review applications, can talk to the mentors, can talk to those individuals and decide that yes, they do need to be provided with some assistance. We'll be offering job opportunities for up to 1,200 positions. Some of those will be craft positions, some will be hourly operations type positions. There'll be a number of engineering, management, accounting, very broad base. When you hire 1,200 people, you create the opportunity for a very broad base of disciplines.
What's your advice to people that would like those jobs in terms of getting themselves prepared?
In terms of getting themselves prepared, get a high school education, get a trade, get a craft, get a process technology degree, or get a engineering degree.
What will it take to get a workforce ready to accept those jobs?
Well, it's going to take, first of all, the public understanding that these opportunities exist. Secondly, and it's already being worked on by the general administration and by 5 of his cabinet secretaries and by the private sector in unique partnerships that have been set up around the state, to begin training young men and women in the trades. And those trades go from everywhere from scaffold building to welding to electricians to process technology. All of that information now is being moved into the public stream of understanding, and more people now are getting it. They know that we're going to have tremendous opportunities in this state in the construction and trades for the next 3 to 5 years, and beyond that, lots of opportunities, a generation of opportunities for people to help run these new plants.
I'm privileged and honored to be working on the craft committee for underneath the state's Workforce Investment Council. And what we're about is putting together a plan that will prepare all the people for the jobs, get people the training, but more importantly is to give every citizen of our state, with this large amount of wealth that's coming through the petrochemical industry, the opportunity to get a skill and possibly work in the industry and take part of this great opportunity we have in our state's future.
What kind of training programs are available for people that want these jobs?
People have the opportunity to learn everything from how to be an electrician in the plants, instrument technician, a pipe fitter, a welder, millwright, anything and everybody that is involved in the construction of the petrochemical plants are jobs that are going to be available and needed over the next 5 to 10 years.